Hey, welcome to this episode of BroPartisan Hacks. It is Sunday, June 13th. We are back from our vacation. So before the break was because we were busy. And then we were so not busy that we were on vacation, so we couldn't do the show. So we're back after a 2 week hiatus. Um, welcome, welcome. Uh, how you doing, man? Hey, you see my shirt?
You have a hammer and sickle shirt.
I did. Now let me tell you about how well I did on the stock market last week. Um,
Communism. I invest in capitalist enterprises.
I know, but here's how I did on my capital. And I actually the last 2 weeks have been really good. Just our AMC finally came to fruition. We've been holding that shit for so long, and
You know what?
finally,
Yeah, and it might still go. It might still go,
it
but
might.
$50 was always my
But,
target. So
but I tripled my money because I was in at $9. Well, I got out and then got back in and still tripled. Like it's so ridiculous.
yeah, yeah. I'll
Uh,
make sure. Yeah.
and then, um, man, because I had all this extra cash, I was like, what can I do now? So I bought a bunch of clothes. And this last week, clothes shot through, and I got out of that before it tanked. So I bought in at like 11. It shot up to 28 and sold at 25. So,
Well, I told you what I did. You had the recommendation on Virgin Galactic Holdings.
yeah.
We'll see how that pays off.
I still believe. Um, but I'm still up, but I'm up. You know, I've basically I've been in where like usually Wednesdays are really good. Thursday, Fridays, not out of those positions. You should probably
Yeah.
get out. So,
You gotta wait. You gotta speak up a little bit louder. It's like I don't know if your mic's cutting out because of connection or if the like plug is bad or something.
oh, what I said was Wednesdays are usually for the meme stocks. Wednesdays are usually really good. That's
Mm.
when most of the trading for the options goes down, I guess,
Yeah.
For Friday calls, Friday options. So, like, you know, I've always had really good Wednesdays.
I'm
Thursday, Fridays, it usually tanks.
yeah. Fridays it usually tanks. The options plays tank on Friday because that's when they all expire or somebody gets left holding the bag. Is kind
Yeah.
of what it is at that point.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. I don't know. I
All
might have
right.
made a bad bet on Ford, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
I don't know. I don't own very much of it, but um, that truck has to come out. The electric, the EV. But Ford is a long-term investment. That's not a play. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Like Ford is an old man boomer investment. Like if I'm being honest, like it's gonna eventually go up. It's not gonna rocket up and then come back down and shoot back up. It's not.
Yeah.
It's never gonna play like that.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty steady. Even if it tanks, it's still gradual. You know what I mean?
It's
Like
a
it's still gonna be like
gradual decline into the abyss of
uh,
yeah.
just it's funny because like man, back in 2001, Ford was like $2 a share. It was dirt cheap,
Oh
and
yeah.
I didn't have any money then, but I wanted it, and I think that's when Dad bought it. So I remember talking to him about it. Man, I wish I had some money. About
Man,
Ford.
I need some money.
Is it because it's American and America's not going to let it fail? But that was when they had the Firestones. That's when they had the Firestone
Tire
tires
blowouts.
were blowing up.
Mm-hmm.
The Ford Explorers were flipping over, and everybody was getting out of their Ford and getting into a Toyota,
I remember that.
and it just tanked. You know it's coming back. You
And
know it is.
yeah, Ford sued the heck out of them, I believe. But yeah, no, Firestone is like I still think about like Firestone in terms of like they had all those blowouts. I would drive by the little stores right now. That was 20 years ago.
It's funny. One of my friend's dads, he owns a Firestone mechanic shop.
Yeah.
Uh, but I don't buy tires from him. But he hooks me up every time I go in. He charges me like for a synthetic oil change. He charges me like
Like 20 bucks?
30 bucks.
Oh,
30
30
bucks
bucks.
for a synthetic oil change. That's like a $95 oil change for my big truck.
You should be able to turn on the fan.
I have I got the big 5.0 V8 F-150. So, like,
Yeah, no, I totally understand. But yeah, no,
he doesn't know me that well, but I name drop his kid every time I go in.
oh, yeah.
Even though we're all like 30 and 40 years old. Hey, I know
Right.
your son. Hey.
He's my homie. Well, do you so because we've been so not busy, how was the falls? I'd ask that real quick. How was your vacation?
Oh,
The falls.
oh man, dude. So really pretty cool spot. So we didn't get to spend a whole lot of time there because this past weekend was like thunderstorm central in Oklahoma. Right. So we went to Turner Falls, Oklahoma. And my wife this is a surprise. Everything was a total surprise. So it was really pretty fun for me because I had no idea where we were going. We got in the car and she's like, okay, well, we got about a 6 hour drive. Oh, I was like,
I should have brought a book.
well, I'm driving. So, but she, I've got to be at work on Monday and we were coming back Monday. And so the whole time I'm doing the calculation in my head, like, what time do I have to get up and leave on Monday to be back to work?
1 a.m.
well,
That's the
I
time.
didn't have to be at work till 1 p.m. So it would have been fine.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, Turner Falls is only about 2 as long as there's no thunderstorms. So anyway, so we get there and we pull into this like general store parking lot, like a general store,
Yeah.
and she had rented out the whole building for the weekend through Airbnb. That was our Airbnb. Somebody had gutted out the store, redid it all, and so yeah, and so we stayed in the general store there in Davis, Oklahoma. So, a couple of things. The falls thing is really, really cool. It is, they did the zip line. The kids did the zip line. I could have gone by myself, but
Yeah,
I'm
you
too
cut out.
fat.
You could have gone by yourself, but what?
But I was too scared,
Oh, yeah.
and I'm
Okay.
too fat to go with one of the bigger. So there's a 450-pound weight limit. So if it was like me and
You're
um,
too fat. Got it.
I'd be too much weight. So
Oh man.
and then the oldest son chickened out. So yeah.
Well, that's fun.
So the wife and the teenager went. That was fun. And it's like, I mean, it's not big. It's like a 77-foot thing, but you can take your kids out in the middle of this creek there, or the river off of the falls, and you can just kind of wade around in there. You can swim. Like there are some parts that are deep enough to swim. If you go on further down, they got like slides and stuff for the bigger kids. Um, and they got some cliffs you can jump off of. It's a pretty family friendly event. We went there. We were there for maybe 3 hours, and then we got rained out. Uh, so I'd like to go again, like maybe in a hotter time because the water's freezing. Water's cold. It is cold.
Yeah.
So you go in August when it's 110, be great.
I'd be feeling, yeah,
Uh,
I'd feel great. I like
so,
right now.
but yeah, but and the rain that was coming down, so it rained us out, and we had to, we packed up and we left. I had to leave early, and then they went in the morning to this other Cherokee Choctaw something park. Sorry. I said I don't remember what tribe it is,
Cherokee and
but anyway,
Choctaw, they're in Oklahoma?
I don't. It's Cherokee or Choctaw.
Oh.
Um, but anyway, there's a reservation there, and so they went and saw all kinds of wildlife and stuff. I didn't see that.
Yeah.
The park would be super cool to go back to. I mean, like I said, it's very family friendly, especially for little kids. You put them in life jackets, and they're just climbing all over the rocks, and it was really fun for them.
Yeah.
Really fun.
I'll have to check it out and see if it's something we want to do later on. But so that's what we've been up to. What's been going on in the world, man? We just had the G7 summit.
Really?
G7 just happened. I don't know if you noticed that.
Oh, I did. I did hear about the gift exchange between us and England, and how Boris printed off a picture from Wikipedia, and then Biden gave Boris this like dope ass bicycle, like with a helmet that matches like $6,000 bicycle or something like that.
I should have printed off a picture from Wikipedia to give it to Boris Johnson.
Right. What a dick move.
That's pretty funny. I did see that, like, I don't know, like everything was about it was no, the one thing that caught my eye was when they were talking to Emmanuel Macron about it, who was recently slapped in the face by one of his own people. So yeah, Macron. This is side note. Macron walked up to this thing and like the rail where the people were going, and this dude just slapped him right across the face. And he only got 18 months in jail.
That's it.
That's it. That's it. I saw that he was sentenced, and it was 18 months in jail for slapping the president. And he'll never have to buy another beer in a French bar again. Like, and I feel like that guy's gonna be all right. So that happened, and then I think it was Macron who was given the thing. It was like, oh, it's so good to have a leader in the U.S. that's part of the club again. I was like, okay,
Man. Yeah, I don't like everything that I see. uh, has been out the ground. It's just like a lot of petty ass shit that I don't really care about. So I give up looking through the news stories pretty quickly. It's so much clickbait and so much like dumb stuff that where it's like, so what's the word I'm looking for?
meaningless.
Yeah, well, I mean, yes, but like, I look at these stories, And the headlines like so and so destroyed and blah 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 blah, and really it's like, oh, this might have happened. And so, you read the story and it's
Yeah.
like that's not what your headline says. Calm down.
Well, and they're like, the headline is like, we need to reform the World Health Organization, and it's like, well, what are you actually going to do about that? And there's no information. They said some words at the meeting with no plan behind it. That was one of the things that they did talk about at like the G7. It was like, oh, we've got to reform the WHO to be more accountable and blah 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 blah. But like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? They were spinning Chinese propaganda. Period. The end.
Yeah.
The WHO failed to recognize the response that Taiwan had was different than China's. They couldn't even mention the name of that place. Of Taiwan. They couldn't even mention it. They'd be like, oh, excuse me, we already talked about China. So, I don't know. I'm not convinced that there's anything that's going to happen there. Especially since the director general of the WHO was put there by the Chinese government. He's an Ecuadorian guy that is ultra sympathetic to the Chinese investment coming into his country. Which I get,
Yeah.
I understand it. But don't act like you're an impartial organization.
I was listening to this. I don't know podcast. It might have been Sam Senior. I don't know. Anyway, they were talking about how all this bluster and whatnot between China and America, and the reality is, um, America's and China's fingers are so uh, into the geopolitical landscape of the entire world that neither one of us can fail because it will crash their economy as well. So if something happens in China, we go to war with China, our economy falls. Same with them, vice versa. Right? Something happens, war, whatever. Our economies, believe it or not, are still interdependent on each other.
Oh yeah, for now.
Because we trade with China a lot, and they trade with us a lot. So if something happens between these two factions, the economies in both countries can tank. And that's the two world superpowers.
Did you see the thing where Biden was talking about implementing I think it was like a 15% global import tax to try and like insulate some of the jobs from going overseas and try to do his Build Back Better plan. Did you hear about that?
No. I know what you're talking about, but I didn't hear what happened.
So he pitched this like 15% global import tax on all goods coming back to the United States, except for things coming from China. And like they were going to have the only exemptions. And
But that's
so
that's where the problems are.
Yeah, that's where the problems are, and that's I mean, it irritates me because it's like, again, I've talked about it in the past where we talked about like the steel industry, where like if you can't get good materials in an industry and you install a piece of pipe or a pump or a valve or something, and the very metal itself isn't right, it can blow up and kill somebody.
Yeah.
You can wipe out the whole place. If one valve isn't right, I can do serious damage to everyone who works there. And so, like, I see things like that, and we know the history of the forges and the manufacturing out of the materials and metals out of China. there's a whole industry that exists for like identifying fake parts. You know, like bearings. Somebody will like
Yeah.
knock off a bearing from like a German manufacturer, and they'll try to pass it off as this SKF bearing or whatever it is, and you know it's not the same material. It doesn't run for more than like a month, but somebody spent money on it. You know, it's
Right.
way more widespread than anyone really knows who doesn't work with it every day. So I don't know. I get annoyed at things like that where I'm, you know, these are the things that we're putting into our manufacturing plants, which is weak enough as it is in this country, and then we're going to give
So are
breaks to
you
the people
saying
who are
that,
doing it.
that you can't get American steel, or people are buying the cheaper?
It depends. So you can get American steel; it still exists. What's irritating? So like if they do something like this, so the American steel will obviously not have an import tax, but it's very expensive to manufacture anyway, right?
Hmm.
And so then the only other source that's in a comparable price path is would be the Chinese steel. If that stuff is allowed to start coming back in under this plan that they put forward. And so again, companies, as you've always said, some companies are going to take the cheapest material possible and try to build something dangerous. Now, fortunately, there are a lot of standards during construction and during testing, and if you're following them, you should be able to catch these things.
Right.
You know, there was a plant where it was actually designed by, I think it was designed by Samsung. It was a chemical plant, right? I don't even know if I'm allowed to say that it was designed by them. I'll probably have to cut that out.
Why?
Because it resulted in a lawsuit that cost like $10 million. You know what? It's over. It's probably fine. We'll just leave it. So anyway, so this company...
We're not big enough.
Yeah, we're not big enough. So they designed this plant, and obviously it wasn't somebody in like the company itself, but it was somebody who worked for them. They spec'd out like this Hastelloy, you know, super material for like a chlorine line, a chlorine gas line, and liquid chlorine line, and what they got was like 316 stainless, which is really, really bad if you know anything about materials. So stainless steels and chlorine steels don't go together. Or stainless steels and chlorine chemicals don't go together. It just like cracks. It's instant like failures. And it'll look like spider webs going all the way down the pipe.
Good to know whenever I build.
Good to know whenever you're building and dealing with like a like a pool or something, right? Like you just use PVC, it's fine. But anyway, so they spent millions of dollars buying all this pipe. I had it all installed. I had to tear it all back out because of like nobody had caught it until after the design phase and the installation when somebody was going back to like check it. So like following some of these standards and rules, it may not catch things like that, but there should always be somebody who knows and can identify material incompatibilities, defective materials, bad welds, bad craftsmanship, bad manufacturing. Like all these things are important. And so if the materials you're getting are up front no good, it's going to cost us millions and millions of dollars. And ultimately what happened was they had to sell off the whole business.
Oh, wow.
That's how much money this thing cost. Like in the grand scheme of things, the whole business became unprofitable, and they had to sell off every asset that made this material. So, it's kind of a big deal, even with like a screw up of that nature. And so now, if you're talking about we're going to give an edge to an entire country that in this sector that gives bad material, you're hurting our manufacturing more than you could possibly imagine.
Are you referring to this explosion from 5 a.m. today,
I
where
am not. There was
in
another
China
explosion 5 a.m. today. Let's see here.
uh, on NBC News?
Was it in Houston?
No, China.
Ooh. 10 residents injured after suspected. Is that the right one?
12 people killed, 39 seriously injured Sunday after a gas line explosion.
No, it was the right one.
China, in the Hubei province of
I'm gonna
Xi'an.
pull it up. Oh. Let's see here. This one. Let me fix this. There we go. Now you're on there again. Golly.
Weak adherence to safety standards, poor maintenance, and corruption of enforcement bodies.
Yeah. I mean, this is the country that had the, what was it, the giant fertilizer plant that exploded in the middle of the town. It looks like a megaton bomb going off in the middle of it.
We had two, Texas.
Yeah, we did have one too in West. I remember that. That was the fertilizer plant for sure there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, some of these things happen. And, you know, we do everything in our power to keep them from happening, obviously, but sometimes people make mistakes, man. They, you know, it could be as easy as like, hey, you know, this guy's got a task to go load this rail car or whatever. Hey, I got to go put chemicals in this rail car to pump it on and haul it off site. If that rail car's not clear, if it's got something else in it, and you start adding chemicals to it, it can blow up right then, violently.
That's what happens when you mess around with chemicals.
So
Things blow up.
You have to be careful with these things. Like, it's serious.
Constant vigilance. No.
Gas explosion. Oh, here we go. Oh, this isn't this one, but 12 people killed. 30. Is this what you were looking at?
Yeah, that's what I said. You know, shortcuts. Basically, a lot of the things that America deals with prior to a lot of the OSHA stuff and the labor union stuff and like regulations. You know, 'cause from what I understand, the reason they want to go to China is because they don't have a whole lot of regulations on their industry, and so.
Well,
and
they don't
so,
have to pay them very much either, so that's part of it too.
well, there's the other thing, but I mean, from what I understand, regulations and like air regulations, those types of things, they don't really crack down on. And that's kind of what happened here before they put in all the regulations. And then so you have explosions because technology is a lot better now, right? And so you can have bigger explosions. You know,
it takes a long time. It takes a long time for industry to implement better technology. So it's you're on the scale of almost like decades than.
But
like
what I'm saying is like, yeah, but what I'm saying is like, they are experiencing some of the things that we have experienced.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
Before, because you know the reason we have regulations on our industries is because we don't want people to blow up. We don't want people to die in the factories while they're, you know, doing their job.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that kind of. So, uh, I
Money.
kind of find this very interesting because it's a profit. Profit runs the world,
Well, and it's
even
not
in China.
just necessarily that. Like, it's a lot easier to bribe an official to sign off on whatever in China than it is over here.
Yeah,
Like, and since a lot of these things, with the way that they run their public businesses now, there's always a party member on the board of every company, of every publicly traded company above a certain threshold. There's a party member that sits on the board, and so like everything has to go through that guy and be fed up to to the ruling government, the party, and and so like those people are just collecting money. We're like, oh hey, yeah, we need to do this. Yeah, no, we'll sign off on that. That'll be fine. Thank you for my donation for expediting.
yeah, that
Oh man,
happens.
if you don't pay the expediting fee, it'll take a long time to get these permits, dude. I'm just. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, you can go ahead. Open that up.
Yeah, that happens here too.
Oh no, it happens here, but it's less a matter of being directly on the board of the company to do that. So theoretically, over here, you would have like whatever your EPA regulator that comes in, and in the state of Texas, it's governed under this other thing that's the Texas Department of Environmental Quality Commission or something like that.
Yeah,
Um, I think that's it. Anyway, basically, they enforce EPA regulations, right? And so, in some cases, Texas has looser regulations. In other areas, it's actually tighter. But in any case, it's always enforced by the local jurisdiction, and they're supposed to be independent, right? But as you said, people are people, and some people take bribes. So, I mean, the only thing you can do is throw them in jail at that point.
yeah.
So, do you want to talk about math?
Sure.
Okay.
Talk about equitable
Do you want to lead in to this? Or you want me to give the breakdown of kind of
I would like
what's
for you to start because I don't I don't want to like jump in.
yeah. You want to cut me off whenever I'm going, right?
Yeah,
I got you. So, if anybody who's been paying attention to the recent, math and everything else that's been going on, they've probably come across this. This is the plan for teaching mathematics to grade school kids. That's becoming more and more popular on really in like California, Oregon, and in Washington State. I think those are the three states that have actually implemented this curriculum into their schools. And some of this is not terrible. Some of this is just, how do you teach kids? What are your plans? What do you think when the student did meet expectations? Like, this is one of the workbooks. I don't know if you can see it on that screen there. Nothing about this really seems too bad. However, there are some instances and key points in here that are just wrong. And it's the the wrongness of those key points, I think, that make this essentially bad for the areas where the students are going to grow up to continue math education, and it presents a certain extreme bias in the way that the history of mathematics is taught through this program. So I'm gonna go back just a second and say, what is math? Mathematics is a way to understand the world. That's really all it is, right? It's how do you can use math to predict what's going to happen in the real world through either physics or chemistry or whatever. The reactions of the world are governed in mathematics, and you can figure out what's going to happen by modeling it through math. Because of that stark reality, in many cases, there is a right answer. In almost all cases, there is a right answer. And in the engineering field, in structural engineering, just take that for an example. If you don't have the right answer, the building collapses and everyone dies. If you don't have the right answer in a chemical plant, then you miss the chemical reaction and it blows up and you kill people. In the world that I work in, it's extremely serious that the math is right. And maybe you don't necessarily have to have that level with a grade school child, which, okay, I'll accept that. But it's also, mathematics has been something that's been discovered over a period of thousands of years. From the Greeks to the Romans to there were the Persians. We use Arabic numbers right now for numbering systems, and a lot of this here in this particular curriculum and pedagogy and teaching method, this teaches that math is historically like for white people, which is incorrect. Historically, factually, the end. It has been something that has been worked on globally. For every culture in the world, somebody has been advancing mathematics. And that's why this is like disgusting to me.
Okay, so I'm going to respond to that. So what you're looking at is not for students. Okay, that's first.
No,
Okay,
that's for teachers, correct?
Right. So it's not that they're going to be sitting here and teaching students. This is how math is for white people. You got to make it for yourself. The thing that actually drives me crazy as an educator is as a teacher, when you teach students, you have to know who your students are in the first place. And I've taught in a majority minority school my entire life. And so all of this stuff that they're going through, like, and that's to say that like a lot of what I've seen from looking through this is like make it to where it relates to your students. And to me, fucking duh. Fucking duh. Make your subjects relatable to your fucking students.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that difficult. It's not. I don't understand why this feels to me like somebody's getting paid to do this. Because to me,
What do
if
you
you're
mean?
not
Hold on, back
making
up.
your
Somebody's getting paid to do this.
to make this presentation here, because to me, if you are not making your assignments, your uh, content relatable to your students, you are failing your fucking students. So that that's what bothers me about this. Why do you have to turn this into something that is maybe it's not necessary? Because at the end of the day, when you teach a subject, it doesn't matter whether it's math, history, English, whatever.
Hold on a
The,
second. Are you saying I'm turning it into something it's not, or
oh,
this
this
curriculum is
this
turning it? Okay, I'm just making sure.
because
Well, it's not even curriculum. We'll call this the method. This is the method that they're trying to put on the teachers. And you're saying that they're making this method something that it's not, or
it doesn't. So, um, for example, it says I'm looking at this. It says dismantling white supremacy culture in math classrooms. You see, white supremacy culture show up in mathematics classroom even as we carry out our professional responsibilities outlined in the California Standards for the Teaching Profession. Using CSTP as a framework, we see white supremacy culture in the mathematics classroom show up when uh, there's a greater focus on getting the right answer than understanding the concepts and reasoning. If you're not teaching the concept, you are failing your students.
well, in
I don't know how to. I don't know how to make that
I will say for every
better.
good math professor I've ever had, and I'll say good math professor because I've had some terrible ones, right? For every good
Yeah.
math professor I've had, has always been show the process, work through this process to get to the answer. And
Right.
if you miss the answer, well, that sucks, right? But you're not going to lose all your points because you went through the process. And so, yeah, it's always been like, and this is going to segue into what I think I actually like about the thing that Virginia's doing versus what this is, right? So in early mathematical education, and this really, I'm going to start this at about like junior high, right? Where they first then introduce algebraic concepts, and you're talking about like, oh, now there's a letter in there you got to do something with, and what the hell is this, and how are you adjusting for these things? None of that made any sense to me as far as like what the purpose was, other than the ratios and the fractions and stuff that we did then, because that was pretty easy, right? And that's pretty direct. But none of the rest of it, the calculus that came afterwards, the geometry, all the other crap that came afterwards, none of it made any sense until I got to college, as far as like why we're doing this. Right? And I had this light bulb moment. I remember when it was. I was sitting in like the introductory to engineering class. I'd just gotten out of I think I had to take some remedial math because you remember I went in as the theater major, right?
Yeah.
So I went as a theater major. I transferred over to engineering, and it was like, oh, well, my math is terrible now again. So let me go redo pre-cal, and that was the lady who taught pre-cal was one of the worst teachers I've ever had. They could have like tied a cow to the chalkboard and just like let us read the book, and it would have been better off than listening to her, right? And it would have probably smelled better too, but yeah. That classroom stunk. So anyway, so I'm sitting in this introductory to engineering classes, and we're going over different calculations from like work, power, and force, and how each of the next one is the derivative or the integral of the one before it or the derivative of the one after it. And then we started talking about velocities and like here's an equation that describes a location, and if you take the derivative of this, then it becomes the velocity. If you take the derivative of this, it becomes the acceleration. If you take that derivative, it's like the instantaneous acceleration. And like that moment for me, sitting in that class, looking at all the different derivatives and stuff that I'd learned in calculus that I knew how to do, but I had no idea what the hell it meant. Like, why are we doing this? What's this for? Why is it important to have a derivative? What does that actually mean? Like, none of that made sense until that class in college. And so getting past that point earlier in mathematics can only be a good thing.
Yeah.
And what we've always focused on, at least in my education, was the process. It's like learning a foreign language, and here's the code. Punch in the code. If you do it right, you'll have the right answer.
I am not as advanced in math.
You cut out.
I said I was a PE major, so my math I only the two math classes that I had to have to graduate were was college algebra and sports statistics.
Sports statistics. So you learned how to do batting averages.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Um, so so but I went back to college late. I dropped out when I was 19 and I went back at 27. And I had to take the remedial math course. And the math teacher for that remedial math course was also the high school algebra 1 teacher at one of the local high schools. She was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing, right? Like one of the best teachers I've ever had. Well, then I took the college algebra class uh, with some dude who was a mathematician, uh, arguably the worst teacher I've ever had. And had I not had the lady the year before, I would have failed miserably. Like it would have been really bad. But because I had her with that original knowledge, like that that base knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah. No, like you. There's a lot to be said. You can't say enough about having a good teacher who is able to impart knowledge, and it's not everyone who can do that. You can have somebody who's really really good at something and not be able to show anyone else how to do it.
Yeah.
Like that's you know
That's why some of the best players are not always the best coaches.
right.
And honestly, from what this is, I've I was a part-time substitute in math, but the only reason I don't teach math now is because I don't want to teach a core subject because, um, man, they got to go through a lot. I don't have to do any of that. Anyway,
Well, you don't have to do the standardized testing too, which is a whole
right.
nother discussion.
That's why I don't want to teach a core subject. I don't want to teach. I don't want to do the testing bit.
Yeah.
You know, I still have standards, and I still have, you have to go boom, 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 boom. But because it's not a test subject, I don't get hammered like the core subject teachers do.
Right.
Like they got to go to extra meetings, they got to do all this after hours stuff. Like core teachers get hit with a lot of extra junk that I don't have to
Mm-hmm.
participate in, and I feel bad for them, but I'm not going to do it anyway. My my point in saying that is like because I was a person that was struggling, it makes me a better teacher. So we have to do a lot of math stuff in my class, but it's basic. It's basic algebra, basic, adding, subtracting, multiplication, because it's money, right? We have to deal with math. So at the beginning of the year when I'm going over how to calculate your dividends and that kind of stuff, when trying to go over with the kids how to calculate yield from their savings accounts, things like that. Yeah, it's a struggle. Like, guys, this is money. Like, how do you not? How are you not all in on this? I don't understand. None of us in this room are rich. Like,
Yeah.
none of
All
us.
of you need to care about money. All right? Pay attention.
Oh man, bro, do you know what blows their minds? Talking about overtime, time and a half, calculating the time and a half they should get paid.
Oh, for
Yeah,
being at school?
blows their no. Like, as part of my class is adulting, right? So it's like, you know, how to calculate your paycheck, how to know how much money you're supposed to get paid, things like that, right?
Right.
Um, and so when we're calculating a paycheck and I'm talking about overtime, and the overtime is time and a half, right? They're like, what? Like explosions. Because, if even if they work a part-time job, so they're
They're not
not
making overtime.
they're not making overtime,
No.
right? And so when you talk about that, it's like they don't it's a hard concept for them to grasp for whatever reason. And then they calculate it themselves. I don't I don't know why it's so difficult, but it is for them. They struggle. So,
Yeah.
uh,
And you got to hit them with the Social Security taxes at the end. So subtract this much money right off the top. You'll never
yeah,
see it.
yeah. No, that's a fun time too.
Yeah.
Calculating.
What?
It's always funny. Have you seen the ones where they do like little uh, uh, videos, football players in the NFL when the rookie gets their first check and they're all excited, and then like they see their taxes taken out, they're like, oh, "Where's all my money?" Like, and the veterans just laugh and laugh.
Welcome to
I
the
don't know.
different tax bracket, buddy.
Yeah, that was always funny to me. Like, what? Man, these taxes, bitch, dog. Like, I don't know. I thought that was really funny.
I wanted to go back and point this thing out. I showed it on screen a second ago. So this is the incorporation right here that makes this whole method crap to me. This Ibram X Kendi guy's word here incorporated into the teaching method. Because what is it defined as to be anti-racist? To
The
be
dismantling
anti-racist is
whiteness.
to be anti-racist is what he says is that you cannot get past the prejudice of the past without having the correct prejudice of the future, something like that. So we have to,
Where does he say that?
in his book, uh, How to Be Anti-Racist.
Uh,
You need me to find that for you?
so while you're looking at that, let me just go through this. It says characteristics of anti-racist math. Teach rich, thoughtful, complex mathematics. Teach rigorous mathematics, understanding that rigorous characterizes thorough, exhaustive, and interdisciplinary. Interdisciplinary.
Sorry, what's that? What did you say?
Interdisciplinary. It means more than one subject. So, like, you want to
Right. Okay.
incorporate, English or history or something. Use
Right.
mistakes as opportunities for learning. Recognize mistakes as miscommunicated knowledge. Allow for engagement in a productive struggle. Duh! Like, teach students of color about the career and financial opportunities in math and STEM fields. Encourage them to disrupt the disproportionate push out of people of color in those fields. Invite leaders and innovators color working STEM, STEAM, STEAM fields to meet your students. We actually do like we have a whole, I think it's black men in white coats thing that we do for our kids.
Black
The black men in white coats
and white
for
coats.
doctors,
Okay.
like students that want to be in the medical field.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I had a kid that got into it. He's also a pretty good football player. He actually, I talked to him a couple days ago. He went to Bethany College to play football.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Bethany? I don't know. There's a Division II where they can do scholarships. Anyway, he went there on a partial scholarship to play football. So he had to pay for half of school. Well, then he tried out for the track team, got another scholarship, so now he's on a full ride he wants to be a doctor. So he's got a scholarship in track and football, and he's doing really well. I'm really happy. Smart. Good.
Mm-hmm.
Really excited. He wants to be a dermatologist. And they make a lot of money.
Do what?
So they make a lot of money, so good for him.
Good for him.
So intentionally include mathematicians of color, expose students to mathematicians of color, particularly, women of color and queer mathematicians of color, both through historical examples and by inviting community guest speakers. Teach students of color about their mathematical legacy and ancestral connection of mastery of math. One thing that has always really confused me, not confused, but like in regards to this, and maybe what they're saying is that people don't know in America.
People don't
Let's
know what.
That one, algebra is an Arabic word. Two, the numerals that we use are Arabic.
Mm-hmm.
they're not Roman. They're not white, so to speak. Like almost all math that we use is not from Europe.
Well, one of the biggest concepts to developing algebra as it is today was the Arabic idea of the number 0.
Yeah, that was a big deal.
That was huge. There was no concept of 0 back then.
Yeah.
And that's before the days of the Greek mathematicians. That's way before Euclid and Pythagoras and
yeah.
Let's see here. Here it is. The only remedy to racist discrimination is anti-racist discrimination. The only remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination. And the only remedy to present discrimination is future discrimination.
What does that mean? Can you explain that? What does that mean?
Well, in his book,
because to me that's like clickbait. Like
that's his quote. That's out of his book.
I understand that.
So
but what I'm saying is what does that mean?
Then the discrimination critical race theory wants to remedy is through more discrimination. So you have to have the right discrimination. You have to have the correct discrimination against the correct group of people.
What does that mean in his book? Like, how does he describe that out? What does he mean? Not what you think he means by that quote. What does he mean?
As Mr. Kendi puts it, when I see racial disparities, I see racism. So, if If a lab is full of Asians and whites and not black, he sees it as racism, even if everybody was legally hired based solely on qualifications.
Okay.
So simply by looking around at everyone's skin color, he can tell whether or not you're a racist or not. Because if he doesn't see the right people, you're a racist. Period. The end. That's what that means. That's what that means to me. And if that's not his intention, then it's his fucking fault for writing it that way.
What's the name of his book?
The book is titled How to Be an Anti-Racist. I believe. Yep.
It's how you interpret it.
I'm sure he's got a lot of other really good messages in there. But the idea that more discrimination is how we fix discrimination is fucking retarded to me.
That's a free audio. Oh, yeah.
So it says, since the 1960s, racist power has commandeered the term racial discrimination, transforming the act of discriminating on the basis of race to an inherently racist act. But if racial discrimination is defined as treating, considering, or making a distinction in favor of or against an individual based on that person's race, then racial discrimination is not inherently racist. The defining question is whether the discrimination is creating equity or inequity. Okay? If discrimination is creating equity, then it is anti-racist. If discrimination is creating inequity, then it is racist. Someone producing inequity through permanently assisting an overrepresented racial group into wealth and power is entirely different than someone challenging that inequity by temporarily assisting an underrepresented racial group into relative wealth and power until equity is reached. The only remedy to racist discrimination is anti-racist discrimination. The only remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination. The only remedy to present discrimination is future discrimination. So
that ain't what Dr. King said.
That ain't what Dr. King said. That's all I'm saying. And there's a lot of, like, these two things are diametrically opposed to in my mind, again. So you've got the word temporarily assisting an underrepresented group. Making distinctions in return on an individual's race is racist, period. So I disagree with that inherently, up front, totally, period, the end. I disagree with the idea that racism is only prejudice plus power. I think that's the stupidest fucking definition I've ever heard, and I disagree with it entirely. Racism is racism, no matter what your position is, your power is, it doesn't matter. If you hate someone based on their skin color, it's fucking racist. The end. I don't have time for the semantic arguments of like, well, but this other thing was the we had the power over the blah, 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 blah. Fuck you. It's racist. And it doesn't matter what color you are. The only remedy to past to present discrimination and future discrimination.
I understand where you're coming from, but also it's easy to say that as a white person.
Why?
Because what if someone says to you, fuck you, white, get out of here.
Whatever.
What power do they have? What power is there for their racist ideals to impact?
Where am I?
Here.
Am I physically looking at it here? Then none. Yeah.
That's the difference. So even
if I wasn't white, and they said, you know, fuck you, N-word or whatever, what power do they have over me? What power do I give them over me?
Well,
In today's world.
in
We're
today's
not in the 1960s anymore. In today's world, what is that? Did you know that yesterday, 53 years ago, was apparently the 53rd anniversary of Loving Day, where interracial couples could get married? It was 53 years ago. And so that's after our father was born.
Yeah.
Almost a decade.
Well, not that long.
Yeah, so not that long ago. So we obviously don't live in the same world.
I mean, but again, it's not that long ago.
It's not that
Like
long ago.
this shit wasn't 5,000 years ago.
No, it's like 50.
Right. It's not that long ago.
Mm.
I mean, I was in shit. Watch movies from the 80s, and then tell me, like, that the 80s weren't that long ago. I was born in the 80s. Watch a movie from the 80s, and then tell me the shit wasn't racist. Like, we've come a long way, yes, but there's still a ways to go.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's
So how does having more racism get us to that point?
I don't know that it's more racist.
Oh, well, we'll just say
I
discrimination. We'll just say
I
discrimination then to
feel
make
what
sure
you're
that we're
saying.
not, stepping on anybody's toes with their definitions. Let's just say more discrimination. How does more discrimination get us to a happy place?
Hold on. I'm not agreeing with what that guy says. I was just saying, based on what you're saying, was where there's no power, then there's no racism. Saying it's easy to say some of those things as a white person. It's easy to be like, well, that shit's racist regardless of power. When you growing up, you living your life have never experienced that.
Mm-hmm.
Never experienced being powerless based on your skin color. Now, you may have experienced powerlessness, based on age, weakness, whatever. But just based on skin color, you've never experienced powerlessness to, in any instance. So that's what I'm saying is it's easy to say, well, that's racism is racism regardless. But it's not. It's not the same. It's not racism is racism regardless of who it comes from or who it's directed against. Because if one group has the power, then it's it's different.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how else to put that. It's different.
So, for places that have implemented these policies, such as they are, how'd that work out for them?
What policies?
The appropriate racism.
Oh, I don't know, man.
Zimbabwe is starving right now, and South Africa has a genocide going on. They have the appropriate racism in these locations. This is why I don't care. You could say, "Oh, well, there's your power right there," because ANC's been in power in South Africa for 20 years now.
All right.
So I don't know.
Myth of white genocide, February 15th.
Oh, it's a myth. Okay, yeah, right. Do what? You're too far away from your mic.
Said it was written by a white guy.
Mm-hmm.
As we drove for the expanded, by the way. Apartheid in 1994. What?
Oh, my little login thing keeps popping up like, oh, would you like to sign in to the New York Times? No.
I got paywalled on a story I wanted to look at earlier.
Yeah. So this bill happened 3 years ago now. In August 2018, the ANC passed the taking of land without compensation, and yeah, all this happened. So yeah,
Yeah. And they genocided them,
yeah.
or they took their land.
In some cases, yes.
That, so when they killed some
Genocide stages: classification, symbolization, polarization. Who's affected? The whites, the Boers, and African immigrants. Current situation: 40 years of race status apartheid, ongoing colonial area distributions, high murder rate, rural violence, rape, sexualized violence, social violence, growing hate speech against whites and Boers, growing white genocide movements among right wing. Oh, I guess that's anti-genocide. Threats from the president to implement policy of land seizure. So yeah, that's been ongoing for the last few years. So it's working out real well for him. Having the correct. Let's see. Here's another one where they killed or got rid of all the white farmers that were in Zimbabwe. Now they're starving. So Zimbabwe used to be the breadbasket of Africa. You know, they made food for everyone. They had enough food, they were exporting it to the entire like sub-Saharan African continent. And now they're starving. So I guess my point is that any form of racism is bad.
So, who has the power in those places?
Their governments, the ANC, Mr. Mugabe.
Our.
That's what I said.
Right.
The ANC is a coalition of.
So yeah, I feel like because years and years and years of.
Well, you're missing my point.
Slavery, colonialization. No, hold on. Colonialization. There's years and years of apartheid, racism, whatever, right? Then the white folks went out of power. Now the black folks have the power, and now they're asserting that dominance.
Mm-hmm.
Power. Without power, is it racist?
Yes. Because the definition of racism is prejudice against someone's race and has absolutely nothing to do with power. Oppression comes with power based upon racism. Sure. Yeah, I'll accept that one. That would be a clear definition. Exerting, genocidal tendencies comes with the power based on racism. But racism itself doesn't require power. Oppression does. You could clearly make that argument. But as far as, Mr. Kendi's concerned, this is the correct racism right here. The correct groups have the power, the non-whites, and everything the white people have ever done is evil, and they should all be punished for it. This is the result. This is it. By drawing these harsh, distinct lines, a la bourgeoisie versus proletariat, and everything the proletariat's ever done has been noble and good, and everything the bourgeoisie has ever done has been evil and terrible, and they're the root of all evil in the world. The same thing is happening with these dogmatic preachings of anti-racism, that everything the white man has ever done has been evil and terrible and bad in the world, and everything that non-whites have done is good and noble and virtuous, and we're going to put those in power and not expect anything bad to happen. This is the parallels. This is why it's called cultural Marxism. What you reading about? Nothing? Anything?
Yeah, I'm just reading about this dude. He went to South Africa. Find out. There's some racist shit going on.
And you don't have to look very far to see it. And so when I see things like Mr. Kendi's writings gaining influence, I hate it.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think you fight racism.
And so now that all that's been explained, that's why having the words anti-racist in this educational document pissed me off so much.
Well,
and you can have good teaching methodology, but incorporating this language and what it really means is upsetting.
Really means is that triggers me. So because that guy doesn't own the word anti-racist. He doesn't. It's not to him to define anti-racist.
Oh, no. Time out. So when Richard Spencer coined the term alt-right, he owned that term. Would you agree? No? No, and he had his whole movement based on that alt-right term. That's not... He didn't own that?
I don't think anybody owns that shit. Like... No, I don't think so.
Okay, well, you are in the minority of people on the left. Because anytime they would be like, hey, we just don't want the Republican Party, they'd be like, oh, you're alt-right. And that means you're in with that racist over there. So I'm going to do the same thing with this thing.
So, anti-racist defined by the dictionary says, committed anti-racist who uses vocal genius and popularity to break racist picket lines at schools.
What?
Or a person who opposes racism and promotes racial tolerance. Or opposing racism and promoting racial tolerance. So now let's look up alt-right. The right-wing ideological movement characterized by a rejection of mainstream politics and by the use of online media to disseminate provocation content, often expressing opposition to racial, religious, or gender equality. So, alt-right is against equality.
Against what?
Equality.
Of course they are. Thank you, Webster.
I'm just saying.
Well, I mean, like I said, if the terms can be defined by your enemies, there you go. Anti-racist is racist bullshit. It promotes the correct racism. It is state-sponsored racism, and you're never going to change my mind about this. This is state-sponsored racism. Institutional power is what you're always complaining about. From the guy who wrote the book. And I don't care who else is trying to redefine it. This is what it means. This is what it means when it was first put out. From the core of the argument. And everything else is just
the black
dissemination and explanation.
The original anti-racist.
Are you trying to find the origins of anti-racist?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't care. They didn't write the book. I don't care. I don't care. That's ridiculous. They didn't write the book.
uh,
The guy literally wrote the book about it.
you wrote a book about it.
This is what's being taught
Calm
in
your
the
ass
schools,
down.
in the curriculum today. This is what it means to them. And I don't care
It's
what it
not
was in
that
1688.
that
I don't
sentence
care
ain't in
what
the
it was in
curriculum. I just
1688.
looked at the curriculum. It ain't in the curriculum.
I don't care what it was in 1688. It's in the curriculum. The word's right here. Not curriculum. The pedagogy, the method. It is in the method. It is ingrained in the method.
What is that?
How did engaging in anti-racist work help my students succeed? So what does that mean? What does that mean if it is the correct racism? How did using the correct racism help my students succeed? Did I give them a pass when they didn't get it right? Did I help them instead? Did I do the right thing and actually be a good educator and help them? Maybe. I guess that's up to interpretation, isn't it?
The concept of anti-racism has its roots in abolition, not just the end of slavery, but also the call for structural changes post-emancipation society, like the eradication of prisons that has been around throughout the 20th century civil rights movement.
So what's your point?
Now, my point is that one guy who writes a book fucking all. Just
it is when they base their curriculum and methodology
silly.
off of it.
That's so
It
silly.
is. It is when they base everything else about it off of this book. After he writes a book, if everything moving forward is all about that, then yeah, he does get a say, and that is what we're going to look at. I don't care if it started in the 1920s. If this book fundamentally changed and gave it a paradigm shift into this new school of thought, then that's what it is. And that's what happened. And Robert DiAngelo's crap did the same thing. When a paradigm shift occurs, you look at the thing that caused it, which was this idea. You know, it's kind of like in early Islamic teachings, it's all about loving your brother and doing all these, you know, great things for your neighbor. And you know, it was just kind of like building the tribe up and doing all the things. And then once they became a conquering people, it got to, you know, start teaching about terrorizing the unbelievers and behead the infidels and doing all these other things. And those things came later. In the teachings. So which ones do you look at?
I'm trying to find anybody else that says what you're talking about.
I couldn't hear you.
So I'm trying to find literally anyone else that uses that language. Like literally anyone. Anyone else. Oh, here's one. There's anti-racist is code for anti-white. It's a racist slogan that became popular among white supremacists in the 2000s. Derived from short essay commonly referred to as mantra. Popularized by longtime white supremacist Bob Whitaker. Hey, baby. A mantra attempts to rebut accusations of racism by claiming that people who profess to be anti-racist are actually trying to destroy the white race, and that the term anti-racist is equivalent to anti-white. Whitaker's followers have convinced themselves that they can simply repeat the mantra or the slogan derived from it, that they can somehow capture or reframe debates about racism.
Football.
Yeah, they're playing. Well, that's actually soccer. That's not football. Soccer.
It is football.
You
Football.
shut your mouth.
Football. You know, it's funny. We were at a restaurant the other day, and the kid did the same thing with the soccer game on. Football.
No,
It's pretty cute.
that's all it has.
So basically, that all that said was, anyone who says that anti-racism is just code for anti-white is they're just being racist and all this other stuff, and if they can repeat it loud enough and long enough that somebody will eventually believe them.
How everything works in this country? Yes.
Is that how I got out of that? Yeah. Okay.
That's how everything works in this country. Literally everything. Literally the big lie. Literally just saying it enough times, people will believe it.
Mm.
That's how Trump got it. Everything that y'all spout from the lips of Donald Trump is just from him saying it over and over and over.
Mm.
Same with this shit.
So there's no border crisis now?
I don't give a fuck about it.
I'm just asking. I mean,
I'm just saying. I don't give a fuck. I didn't give a fuck.
So he wasn't
then,
lying then.
And I don't give a fuck now.
So he wasn't lying then.
No,
You just don't care.
I don't know. You
just don't care. Okay.
I don't know. Did I bring up the border crisis?
No, I did.
No.
But you're talking about the lies. And so I was saying, was this a lie? Was it a lie? That's all I was asking. But the simple fact is you don't care, so it doesn't matter. You're just saying things then, and you don't actually care. Got it.
I don't care. I don't care about the border crisis. I'm sorry that you wanted to take something to a different direction than what I was talking about. But no, I don't care about a border crisis. It affects me zero.
Mm-hmm.
What's the border crisis?
It actually affects you. It actually affects you a whole lot.
No, it doesn't.
It will. Yeah.
It doesn't, and it won't.
You said it yourself that your school. It's what would you say, majority minority school? So
yeah.
Are they going to get more funding when it's a majority?
What do you mean?
Would it be better if there was a majority and not a minority school?
No. No, you get. I guess you get more funding. Rich. We do all right.
So if you added like 30 students to every classroom, it's not going to affect you.
They'd hire more teachers.
But you don't have any funding. You just said that. So all you're going to do is pack more kids in the classroom?
Don't twist my fucking words. That's not what the fuck I said.
That's what you said. You said you didn't have funding. The rich kids get the funding.
The rich kids get the funding, but that doesn't mean you don't get any funding.
But you're going to get enough?
State law requires you can't have more than 35 kids in your classroom, period. So you hire more teachers. Yep.
Oh, okay. I did
you
not
cannot
know that.
have more. Yep, that's state law.
Is that up to a certain grade level or for all grades?
No, that's period.
No.
PE classes can only have 45, state law. And if they violate it, you can report them. So if they start stacking kids in your class, you just report them.
Is that 45 per teacher? So if you have 2 coaches, you can have like 86 or something?
Mm-hmm.
Or 90, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Math.
In the gym.
Yeah. I can see that. That's cool.
So, no, you can't. You can't do that. Now, who's to say what's going to happen in New York? I just saw some shit in New York. This dude's trying to say with new technology, a single teacher can teach like 300 kids at one time, or some crazy shit like that. Yeah, that's the front runner for the mayor of New York City.
Hey, he's a Democrat. That's your people.
Dumb.
Your people.
25 people is max.
That's a lot.
Really. 25 kids.
To like get in there and actually care about an individual student. Yeah.
25 kids is optimal in my opinion. I mean, less is cool, but then you don't get enough feedback and diversity and stuff like that. So like I think having 25, you can get a good discussion going, but then it's not too much where it's chaos.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
35 is probably too much. Like that's a lot of kids.
Yeah.
And so the way they do it in our district is, like, for example, math classes, they won't do more than 20. Period. Like they don't have more than 20. Uh, 20
Well,
kids at a time, but they'll load up a history class.
right. And yeah. I wanted to pull up this right here as kind of a change in pace. And so we were talking about math and some of the things that this other document says. It gets a lot of the don't, are you expecting like the right answer, because getting the right answer is white supremacy, and math in and of itself is white supremacy, so make sure you look at
That's not what it says. That's not what it says. It's not what it says.
It's not what it says. That's misrepresenting it. I know. Call me out on it. But it does say getting the right answer is white supremacy.
Focus on getting the right answer. Focus on getting the right answer instead of focusing on the content. And again,
which again, no math teacher
concept.
worth their salt does.
Right. And I don't know how that's white supremacy, because that doesn't, like, I just think, I don't understand. I don't understand how it's white supremacy to focus on getting the right answer versus focusing on the concept, because the concept is what is teaching. If you can't teach the concept, things you can't fucking teach.
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
So
you can't teach the concept, then you can't teach.
So yeah, so you agree with me that phrasing that's specifically used in this is ridiculous.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I do agree with that. Absolutely.
All right. So I was looking at this one, and people on the right were upset because it basically, what this does is it lays out a different math path, if you will, for, that's what they say. It lays out a different curriculum over the course of a high school career, to where the advanced classes are only in the junior, senior level classes. And so I don't really have a problem with that. And, traditionally, so I don't know what your original, like, I had the advanced math path, if you will, right? So like I think in the 8th grade I was taking like algebra 2 or something. In 9th grade it was geometry. 10th it was like pre-cal, and then we had trig junior year, and then calculus my senior year, right? Something like that. But we only had one math class every year. So I think that was a mistake, because our physics wasn't really math based, right? Because all of physics is calculus. If you can't do calculus, then you really can't do the physics based calculus, and then everything else is just like glorified algebra. And so what this did, I'm not sure what I'm assuming number sense is what we would typically refer to as like the arithmetic stuff.
Hold on. All
right.
Hey, y'all go find mom. Y'all go see mom. You hear them like, okay.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay. So continue. I'm sorry. I couldn't concentrate on what you were saying.
No. It was a lot. So like basically the only advanced classes that I was offered was the calculus of my senior year. We had trig my junior year, and it was like geometry, trig, pre-cal, and then calculus, I think is what it was. And then the only other math classes we had were like biology and physics and whatever the other one was.
So I just want to pause you real fast. So, I was talking to Dad about this.
This specifically, or math?
Well, just about math and how kids do on when they get to college.
Mm-hmm.
And he was saying to me was a lot of kids that get the advanced classes struggle with college algebra. Um, like when they take calculus in high school and they take the pre-cal in high school, they struggle sometimes with college algebra. And I don't know why that is. But he was saying the kids that take the traditional path algebra 1 as a freshman, algebra 2 as a sophomore, geometry as a junior, and then some form of advanced class, advanced mathematics as a senior. They tend to do better in college algebra. First math class that you have to take, you get to college. Everybody has to take college algebra, right? Like that's you didn't have to take it. Well, everybody that's not a fucking engineer has to take it. If
Okay.
you'd have stayed in theater, you'd have had to.
I'd have had to take it eventually. I'm sure. Yeah. But no,
Like
I didn't. I didn't have to
as a
take.
Kines major, that was the only math class that I had.
I didn't have to take
Besides
college
my
algebra. I helped my wife take her college algebra. She did a summer class the other week, and it was funny
really?
because like it was stuff that I hadn't done in a long time. I remembered some of it, but I would like do the problem, and then I would be like, "All right, I did it. You know, what did you get?" And I'd look at her work, and I'd be like, "I didn't do it that way." Oh, this is how the teacher showed it to us. And I was like, well, you can do it that way, but that's dumb. That's harder. Why are you doing it that way? Because that's how she showed it. I'm like, all right, I'll show it how you do it her way, even though it's dumb. All right.
I have a creepy crawler crawling back up here. He's an army crawling through the.
For a second, I thought you were talking about a spider before you talking about your kid.
No,
Yeah.
one of the twins is creepy crawling through here.
Yeah.
But pop up behind me.
You know, the other thing about all of this is that the spatial reasoning, like, that's really important. Probability, I'm not sure what they're teaching in mathematical modeling. Maybe it's
Math models is
like,
kind of a. It's kind of a. I don't want to say remedial, but I'm pretty sure that math modeling or math models or something along those lines is like a. It's generally a remedial class.
You know what I think of when I think of math modeling?
Knowledge.
Is that you have a beam here, and you apply some force over here, and it's sitting on a block right here. You know, how much force do you have to apply on the other side to keep it from like falling over, right? Like this to me is like math modeling right here. And you're like, that's a crane.
Yeah. Okay.
Like that
That
to me
sounds
is
right.
math modeling. I don't know what it is.
PE major. I'm a PE major.
Yeah,
I don't know shit about it. Like like I'm smart enough, seriously, to go and I could probably do history, but again, I don't. So I got my little business test that I have to take to teach class of teaching. But I was in business 10 years before I was a teacher.
Right. Yeah. So
I don't really teach business per se. I just teach adulting.
well, all of these courses right here, with the exception of maybe like geometry and design, algebra, calculus. So data science, probability, mathematical modeling, financial modeling, and discrete mathematics for computing sets and logic. Like these are all like good classes. Like I don't know why people on the right were like upset about this plan. I think it was mostly just because they didn't understand it and they're morons.
Right. I think a lot of things are like anything that seems
oh, it's
woke.
different. And they're not gonna do the advanced classes until they're seniors in high school. How dare they? It's like, motherfucker, we don't
know what
do that
everybody
anyway.
does.
Nobody's
Right,
taking calculus as a sophomore. Right?
You know what we do already? Like, don't you? Because math is taught linearly. Like one of the things that I will say about math, the reason that a lot of people like math is logic. And it is logic in a sequence that is unlike any other form of thinking, right? So when you think philosophy, when you think, I don't know, but like, just take philosophy. Philosophy is a fucking start, right? And it's annoying, and nobody likes to talk to philosophers. But math is sequential, logic, sequential, linear, and that's just what it is. Like you can't change that. Like it's numbers, and so most people go in the sequence. Now you can take a break in between algebra 1 and take geometry and then go take algebra 2, right? But it's still a sequence of uh, your learning, right? So yes, the advanced mathematics classes should be taken in upper levels. Duh.
Yeah.
Duh.
So one of the things that's so intriguing about mathematics, and I always like to point this out, especially given the shirt you're wearing. Um, Mathematics was the one field in communist Russia and the USSR that was basically left alone and could not be touched by the government. So it was where intellectuals could go and be intellectuals without the propaganda. It was like the one place where this was the right answer. Your propaganda doesn't matter. Here's what it is.
Yeah.
And they were free to go and explore and do the mathematics without the meddling of the KGB or the Politburo or whoever else, was in there.
Well, they had to
making the
try and get the
propaganda.
space.
Right, they had to, right? And so it's like, there's whole books written about this. Intellectual freedom, and they fired some people that were still like using the mathematics as a what am I saying? Oh, hello. As a tool to like say, hey, mathematically proven how evil the government is, whatever. I don't know, like what the hell they were doing. I'm gonna have to check this book out, but I know that for a fact that it was definitely one of the only areas in their sciences that was untouched politically was mathematics. Like you said, they had to compete in the space race.
I mean,
And gravity is gravity.
and I think there's a lot of the problem that the right with that, but it's because math is math, and there's no like the idea is math can't be racist because it's just it's numbers.
Say that again. The idea that what?
Math can't be racist because it's just numbers. There's no way for math to be racist. But and looking through that curriculum, the only thing that I've seen is have good teaching, relate to your students. And what I have to say to that is fucking duh. I don't know how to make that like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that's like I don't know why. And I guess my point to that is it's like it's not. I don't need to be woke to have good teaching practices, right?
no,
because I'm going to teach equitably to my students because I have to reach my students. They have to gain the knowledge that I'm trying to impart regardless. Right? That's the important part is they gain the knowledge. Right? So however I have to convey that across is what I'm going to do. And so having, if I teach where I teach, I'm going to have, I don't do a whole lot of guest lectures, but I'm going to have, Latin people come in. I'm going to have Black people come in. I'm going to have, you know what I mean? Like, because that's who student is. I'm, we just revamped our whole football team, and I'm one of 2 white coaches on the whole staff.
yeah.
I get to stay because I'm fucking good at my job. So this is funny. So, okay, listen. this happened. So it's the end of the year, and we've got our staff and everybody's ready. We all go to have a drink, right? So when the new coach got there, I kind of went in and I said, I want to stay. I said, here are my qualifications. This and this and this. Uh, and he kind of, it was, to me, it was kind of like, well, I want to still evaluate. So I was like, man, I need a job, dude. It didn't make me feel very comfortable.
Right.
So I'll go over to the superintendent, or not the athletic director of the whole district, because I wanted to stay in the district because my oldest son wants to graduate where he's at. My middle son, whatever.
Yeah.
Kid that's going to be a senior. Anyway, so he wanted to stay. He wanted to finish out his senior year. And so I needed one more year in the district, because as long as I'm in the district, he can stay. If I go somewhere else.
Yeah.
We don't live. Anyway, so I go to the AD and I'm like, hey, here's what happened. I really didn't get the greatest feeling about it. He's like, no, you're gonna stay where you are. He's like, you're fine. I was like, all right. So I go back to work. Anyway, great spring, man. It was like, I really, really, really like the new staff. I'm having a great time. The kids are enjoying it. It is fun. I'm having a lot of fun. So anyway, we all gotta have a drink. Sitting there, and the head coach goes, man, when Coach came to the office, he came in there and just yelled at me. Said, I'm Stan. I'm the fucking best there is. I'm the best one here on the staff. And then walked out. I
The athletic director had your back, huh?
I was like, I don't think that's how that conversation went. Okay, I guess from your perspective, that might have been.
He's Stan. Shut up.
No, I'm saying, like, when I went to talk to him, he thought that that's what I was saying to him. Like, I'm the best there is. I'm Stan. Fuck you.
Thank you for watching this episode of BroPartisan Hacks with Reese and Rob. We really, really appreciate you watching, tuning in. If you like this video, please hit the like button. Please subscribe to us. We're putting out content as often as we can. Share it with your friends. Get it out there. Get our names out there. Also, hit that bell, tap that bell right there so that you can get updated when we put out a new video. Rob and I are trying to pump these videos out as often as we can. However, we both have day jobs, we have families, so our schedules have to line up so that we can make a new video. Speaking of our day jobs, our opinions and views expressed are our own and in no way represent those of our respective employers. Thank you. Thanks again for watching.